We ready?
Yeah. We're live.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the study session of the University City Council to order on June 9th, 2025. But prior to turning the agenda over to the city manager and staff, are there any changes to the regular agenda for the 6:30 session? Hearing none. Mr. Rose.
Honorable Mayor and council members, this agenda item asks that you receive a presentation from the Urban Forestry Commission. I would ask Parks Director Darren Gertler to introduce this item. Mr. Gertler?
Thank you, Mr. Rose. Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I would like to introduce to you the Chair of the Urban Forestry Commission, Mr. Tim Schroeder. They do a very important activity for our community. Our trees are a great asset. It was devastating what happened just recently with the weather events, and that's not part of their report, but they do take care of our trees very well. So, Mr. Schroeder, and I'll let you introduce your colleagues, and Mr. Jacob Kaiser is here also, who is our city forester. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. Mr. Crow, Mr. Rose, council members, thanks for taking the time to listen to what we've been working on for the last year and a half. I want to introduce the rest of the members of my of the commission. Donna Barhard, Linda Freed, and there's Kathy Fries and Roger McFarland. We have two other members that aren't here today, but we're fortunate to have a full commission now. We have 7 members. For a while, when I first joined, we barely could make a quorum, but we've had a good run this last year and a half, and we've done a lot of work. So as I start into this, I'm going to give you a little bit of history of what's been going on with that we learned as we got involved. Most of us on the commission were new to the commission about a year and a half ago. And so we kind of had to start at the beginning and understand what our purpose was, review the various governing documents that we had, and make sure that we understood what our role was. So as we worked through that, we ended up with a report that we're giving you tonight, which we want to present to you in a way that helps you make decisions regarding trees in University City. And we want to try and establish through this presentation an ongoing update that you can see every year and see how the progress is being made, what our problems are, et cetera. So if I would just start with the next slide, just give you a little idea that the history of U City was that the approach to was really kind of threefold in the past. It was really a response to complaints from and concerns about city managed trees. We'll talk about what those are in a little bit. And then there was care for the parks trees and cleanup after damage. So it was pretty much a reactionary type of role that the forestry did, from what we understand, through 2018. But when we get into 2020, we started, there was a tree inventory that was commissioned to catalog all the city trees. And now you have a catalog of every tree that is city managed. And that would be street trees, parks, mostly those areas, but it doesn't include Ruth Park. They did not inventory the Ruth Park woods. It's pretty big area itself, and a lot of trees in there anyway. But this inventory included the size, the species, and the geolocation. So anytime the that the forester wants to look up a tree and see what's going on with it, he can do that. He has a history of the tree, when it's been pruned, et cetera. So the result of this study is that there's a pruning cycle. It goes right along with the trash pickup areas, by the way. There's 5 of them. And so that was the easiest way to do that. And it cycles through every 5 years, all the trees that are city managed are pruned. This is very important for the life of a tree, as well as reducing hazards when trees have problems. So when I started in, we came under a new leadership. We started looking at members and envisioning the plan that we're going to present to you. And as I said, we reviewed all of our governing documents just to get started on that. So what we came up with, we started in May of 2023, and we were looking at coming up with key performance indicators. These are measures that help us objectively measure the health of our city managed trees and reported status. We also wanted to look at comparing UCity's performance against established standards. So you'll see some of that in the document. And if we can, identify some budgetary needs, although that's not our primary concern. And we wanted to encourage, lastly, we wanted to encourage good husbandry of privately owned trees, because there's a lot of trees in UCity that contribute to our canopy that are not managed by the city, but are on personal property. So we felt then that we ought to create a communication plan to residents so that we could help them do a good job as well. So the key performance indicators, here's what we came up with. First of all is the canopy coverage. That's there is a tool that we use called iTree canopy tool. And what it does is you're able to actually, there's satellite images that you're able to identify the trees and determine how much coverage you actually have with your canopy. So this would naturally include everything city manages and everything that's privately owned. So that's why the overall, this is the one overall measure that looks at the entire community. The other thing we wanted to look at is the number of trees. So we'll have a slide on that. The number of trees pruned, planted, and removed each year. The tree species diversity, that's very important in case you have some kind of disease hit the tree. It's like the famous one is emerald ash borer, and that's on its way to being resolved for the city anyway. But the diversity helps keep you being vulnerable to those things. And then there's a class size distribution. And this is important when you think about the trees in terms of the size. Trees take a long time to grow. As you know, we have many trees that are 30, 40, maybe 50 years old, but we want to have new generations coming along all the time. So having an idea of what your class distribution is, and if it's a healthy distribution, really gives you another measure you can look at. And then we also looked at the percentage of contract versus in-house work. This was an interesting one because I don't know that there's a good or a bad number here, but it's something we just wanted to look at and keep track of. And then the 7th one, the state county tree management, is a really important issue. And when I get into the details on that, you all know probably which streets as well as I do are not managed by UCity. And then there's new planting areas to be established, particularly in areas where there might be heat islands. And then lastly, the resident communication, which helps with the whole canopy coverage. So these are the things we want to report on to you tonight. And we want to continue to report on consistently each year and see how things are going. Excuse me, I'm fighting allergies, so it's so the canopy coverage is pretty good news. The National Forest Service says that an urban forest with 40% coverage is good. Now, that would be in an area where you can grow trees. That's probably not the same thing for Phoenix, Arizona. But for the kind of community we have, 40% is good. And right now, we have 37%, so it's very good. I think what we need to be concerned about is which direction that's trending. If we lose trees to storms or construction or things like that, that can have a direct effect on that, of course. And we're fortunate enough that we missed that tornado. It is important, though, to recognize again that the canopy coverage is a collaborative effort between the city and the residents. And that part with the residents is a challenge that we are, that is a little bit difficult for us because we need to try and get communication out to them. And we're still working on with the communication department to get more avenues to do that. So the next one, the number of trees maintained by the forestry department, you've got 7,721 street trees, 2,978 park trees. That excludes Ruth Woods, as I mentioned before. So the forestry department's overlooking about 5,000 trees per person in the department. There's just a couple of people in that department. It might be the third one by now, I understand, but possibly. The number of trees removed, pruned, and planted. This is where we want to look at trends. So we showed all three of these graphs, and you can see that the pruning has increased a lot as we got into that new contract cycle with a vendor that helps us prune trees, the larger trees during the year. And then I think the forestry department does the smaller ones. The one thing that you can see in here, though, is trees planted is dwindling just a little bit. And that's a concern. And we'll talk about that some more later. But the removals, that can be a combination of whomever is available, whether we do it ourselves with a staff or whether we use contractors. But overall, the new trees planted has decreased over the last 4 years. So we're really not keeping pace with our needs in that area. So this is an interesting slide in that it shows the diversity. Look how many we have, 170 different tree species managed by the city. So that's a lot of different species. We have really, really good diversity with the exception of the pin oak. There's really too many of those. There's too many of those in Clayton, by the way, as well. Most of their tree-lined streets are pin oaks. So over time, I think, those pin oaks will become a smaller quantity. But I wanted to draw your attention to the fact that the second area that we have on tree diversity is actually vacant sites. This is where there were trees and there are not any longer, and they need to be replaced. So that's a little bit of a red flag for us in terms of the number of trees we have. But I'm sure as we get more trees planted and everything, we'll continue to increase our diversity, but that's in pretty good shape. Just for percentage of contractor versus in-house work, we kind of broke this down by each of the different work areas, but pruning, as you can see, is a lot done by the contractors. That number varies a little bit because of the number of trees that are in each one of those 5 areas.
You may have skipped one of your slides.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Tree size distribution, just helping you out.
Thank you. I did. So the tree size class distribution, we were talking about that earlier. So ideally, that would be a bell-shaped curve. It's a little bit steep, you can see, and we need to catch up with planting a bit more trees. And if we start catching up on planting trees, then that will, make this curve start to smooth out the way we want. But in general, it's not too bad. Something to keep an eye on. Thank you for catching that. Okay, now to the percentage of contractors. So this just shows us that we had a little bit of decrease in our own city staff for a while and used more contractors. Again, this one is, and outsourcing is probably something that makes sense for a lot of the work we do. And that's really a decision that you all make. And we don't really need to impact that too much other than just to make you aware of the numbers there. Next is the trees planted. So the city does a lot more of the tree planting than we use for contractors. In some cases, I think they have ash borers, or when they're taken down, they may be replaced by the contractors. In this project, as it's mentioned here, it's going to take another 7 to 10 years to finish replacing those trees. And one interesting thing I learned being on the commission is, oh my gosh, those trees, they've got ash borer. Don't we need to take them down like right now? Trees don't die that fast. Takes them a while. So you really don't have to. This is good that you have a program that gradually does this. There are a lot of trees that you may see that I've learned that have problems. It looks like they're not doing well, but that doesn't mean they won't be there for another 5 years or 10 years. So it really depends on what's there. And of course, our forester knows when there's really bad signs and they need to be taken care of, and when they're just going to finish out their lives as they should. So couple notes here. So one of the things that does hit the forestry work pretty hard is the storms, and that detracts from work for parks and recreation people as well as the forestry staff. And the more we have of that, the harder is it going to be to keep up with other activities like planting. So, we may try and see what's happening there, but overall, we'd like to see more trees planted. There are going to be goals established every year by the forestry department, and we're going to track and see how we're on those goals and if it's trending us in the right direction in terms of planting. Removals, you can see that in 2023 that there was a lot more contractor work for removing trees, and I think we did have some storms in that time that led to some of that. But overall, outsourcing removals is probably a good thing to do. Anybody can do it. It's not as critical a knowledge area as pruning or planting trees. Let's see, I'm sorry. So the state and county tree management, this is an area that when we learned about it, it created some concern for us. Some of our most high profile streets in University City are tree lined, and they're managed by the county or the state. And you can see the list on here: Delmar, Hanley, Midland, North and South, McKnight, Pennsylvania, and Vernon. Altogether, this is 519 trees. It makes up about 7.6% of the University City trees. We talked about how to address this problem, and it's really something that's probably above our pay grade as a commission, but that's where we need council and city manager's help, the mayor's help, to work with the county and the state to see if they can let us manage these trees. And why do we need to do that? I think it's because all they're going to do when the tree comes down is take it down. They're not going to put a replacement tree. And if they do put a tree, it will be on the property owner's tree, not on the street. And that will be because they don't want any more responsibility for it. And that is our current understanding. I don't know if that's correct if you sit down and talk to these agencies about it, but these trees are at risk. And they are, this is a problem that you may have other areas to deal with the county and the state. But it would not be, given that we've got 10,000 trees to absorb another 519, not really a problem, in my view. Now, you know, you should talk to the Parks and Forestry Department to see about, you know, how they would absorb that and what budgetary implications that is. But I'm sure there's all kinds of legal issues regarding U-City taking over the trees. But it is one of the biggest issues that we're facing right now. Okay. Talked a little bit about new planting areas. Currently, there aren't any identified, but you may have heard about heat islands. A good part of St. Louis is going to face that right now because of the tornado that went through. But St. Louis City also had a program that was addressing heat islands. They were identifying them and that sort of thing. I don't know that it's a big issue for University City, but we might want to take a look at whether there are some heat islands and make sure that we're doing some planting there. Some of these may be common ground or, you know, city ground as well that could do that. And planting them with trees is not necessarily the only thing you could do there. You could do some prairies along with trees, et cetera. But at this point, there's really nothing identified. If we could get some kind of a survey or a grant or something in order to, well, if grants are available anymore, to identify those areas, then it might be some work that needs to be done there. So resident communication, as I mentioned before, the canopy coverage is a collaborative effort between the residents and the city. We've identified about 15 different topics that we could help educate the public on in terms of trees. Right now, we're just doing one every quarter in the quarterly newsletter, and that's just getting started. But we're grateful that there's a communication channel that we can use now, and we'd like to start getting that going. There is some collaboration that's begun between forestry, parks, and green practices regarding these topics. So there's been some discussion back and forth between our members. We actually have a small subcommittee of 3 people that are addressing this communication issue for our group. But hopefully we can get some synergies with those other commissions and do some communication with them through the normal channels that the city has. So the importance of our KPIs, the key performance indicators. Our evaluation is that maybe we have insufficient resources to keep up with our and we need to allocate a little bit more to our staff in that area. Now, U-City has a lot of needs, so I don't think this goes to the top of the pile. But one good thing about forestry is that you can include forestry and trees in every project you do in U-City. it doesn't have to be an afterthought or an and, but it can be with a project. For instance, when you build new shopping centers, are they going to put trees in there? I think that's happened. When you have to renovate sidewalks and like over on Forsyth, we had to take a lot of trees down. That was unfortunate, but time limit didn't allow us to look at some methods that could have been available to us to avoid cutting all of those trees down. So I would just ask you to think about the trees every time you have a project, every time that you have to break ground somewhere, where are the trees going to be? The forestry department can certainly help you with that. And in some cases, there's some preparation to the ground that will actually help keep the trees from damaging any of the infrastructure you put around it. I think in general, we may have been taking it a little bit for granted in the past, but I do see a good program now in place. And we want to consistently report on these KPIs every year to you so that we can identify if there's issues growing or if we're improving. So we will have a report for you next year. We're probably not going to stand up here every year and talk to you, but we'll give you a written report at the end. So the major issues that we see right now is that forestry department staff is not very large. It's just a couple of people. An accident here, an illness there, and you're pretty much don't have one. The forestry equipment's old and needs updating, but I think that's true for a lot of stuff. Maybe in U City, after that flood, there was quite a lot of damage to the equipment that's used by the city. There are 462 planting sites where trees have been removed and they've not been replaced. That's a concern, and we want to get that addressed. The 519 state and county trees, I spent enough time talking about that, I think. There is limited outreach to the community regarding the forestry division, and we want to try and fix that through the normal channels of communication and that you said he has available. And lastly, the current storm cleanup policy for major storms detracts from the forestry's daily mission. And particularly what's happening is that we have generously allowed or offered to the residents to clean up the damage from their trees and remove their trees from their property. We don't go on their property, I believe, but we do pick them up. And it is now something that's expected. So every time there's a storm, that pretty much you can be sure there'll be some weeks where we're not getting any other forestry work done. So that's pretty much what I had for you tonight. There is an appendix in the back that you can see where some of our important definitions that we use. Yeah, a printout from the iCanopy tool that we used. And next year we plan to give you this same information, but closer to December. This time though, we wanted to present it in person because we were encouraged to do so by Dennis and by Lisa, and we appreciate that. And Mr. Rose, thank you very much for making the time available to us. Any questions?
Mr. Schroeder, first, on behalf of my colleagues, thank you very much to you and the commission for coming. And I would say before opening it up to questions from my colleagues that I've sat up here a long time, and this was an excellent report. So I don't know who gets credit for the report. So we're going to assume you all participated in
Absolutely.
it. But wow, this was a very well organized positive, negative report that gave us a lot to think about and gives us options moving forward. So just from me, I'd like to say thank you very much, whoever put it together.
Well, thank you.
Well done.
These people did a lot of work.
Well done.
Thank you. And if there's something else in this report that you need or the other information you need, we'll be happy to supply it. I will say there's one thing that you could do for us. When we were reviewing the documents, there is a forestry management plan. It's basically a plan for years, and it probably needs to be reviewed every 5 years, but it has never actually had a chance to get formally through the approval process. But most of the KPIs that we have were based on that. So I think one thing I want to emphasize is we are trying to solidly pull together all of the proper documents and base it on things that are there, the official documents of the city. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Our protocol is the mayor normally asks questions last. So the questions from my other colleagues. Councilmember Clay.
Thank you, Mayor Crowe. And thank you for the presentation. I want to echo the mayor's comments. This was very, very well done, very, very thorough. I like the format. So really well done. Again, kudos to whoever put that together. I also want to echo the mayor's thanks of the commission for their work. That is important. The work of the commissions are important irrespective of the topic, but certainly appreciate what you brought to us today. And I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the work of Forrester Kaiser, because this work is significant, and we see that most acutely when there are storms. But we know year round that this is significant work. I'm honing in on a couple of things that you said, sir. Our trees are certainly assets. It's one of the things that attracts many people to University City. And to your point, without proper maintenance, they can become a liability, and in some cases, a quite serious one. We have heard many stories of folks dealing with trees with limbs dropping. Many of us have seen the results of roots kind of outgrowing their station and buckling sidewalks and creating trip hazards. I offer more comment in this part of my remarks than questions. I want to echo some of the feedback I've heard from Third Ward residents regarding trees. When there is an issue with the tree, what I hear, and I think Councilman Smotherson, my ward colleague, has commented on this. Many residents would like trees taken down when they perceive them to be either the tree is in jeopardy or the folks are in jeopardy because they believe something is going to happen with the tree. And I know tree removal is expensive and not always appropriate. So to the point of communication, I guess I would want to stress that to the degree we can get out information to our residents about our program, about pruning, how that can help remediate. It's not always satisfactory. My council colleagues, those of us who have been on a while, may recall a woman who came almost every meeting to talk about a tree. She was lovely, she was polite, but every meeting came talking about getting a city tree removed.
Right.
So again, there's no easy answers, and I appreciate again the work of Forrester Kaiser and his team and what you do, but that is the feedback I hear from folks in the Third Ward. And as it relates to privately owned trees, it is a rare person who can buy a house in University City does not inherit at least one, if not several, in many cases, large trees. And tree maintenance is incredibly expensive, especially for the larger trees that most folks have in their backyards. And so I certainly understand the plea for folks to maintain that, because they're more privately owned trees than our city trees. We know that.
Yeah.
But it is financially really challenging. I know for the folks that I represent, and I would suspect across the city, it's multi-thousands of dollars, as you know. And the final thing I'll ask about is the proposition of the city taking over county and state owned trees would, and I realize you probably not formally approached anybody, but would the ask include the corresponding resources to address these? I know, you know, in a world of 10,000 trees, maybe 500 is not numerically that significant, but I have to imagine from, you know, every tree takes something. So just would offer that. I don't know if that has been done, but certainly I would ask that to be a
Yeah,
consideration.
that very issue is one that we felt was above our pay grade, so
Okay.
to speak, right? And one of the thing I thought about, if the city has the time and wants to address the issue, maybe we get a task force and we just include a couple of people from our commission or one person from our commission to go along. Clayton is also a tree city. And if you are designated a tree city, you have to have a forestry commission. It's part of being a tree city. That's why you have a commission. I bet they have one too. I've not looked into or talked to their commission to see what their thinking is. But maybe this is not just, maybe View City doesn't have to go this issue alone. They may have a similar problem on some of their streets. I'm not sure. Just a thought.
Thank you, Councilmember Teeman.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor. First of all, I'd like to associate myself with the compliments you've been given on this presentation. It's really great. And I just want to commend you generally on the work that's being done. I mean, it's beautiful. It really is. I love the fact that we have a city like this. I just need a bit of clarification. I'm one of the backbenchers. So a lot of this is new to me. The 519 trees that are county right now, the only thing they will do is prune them and take them down. Do I have that correctly?
I'm not sure they even prune them.
Who replaces it if it dies or?
They're not-
None of them are replaced.
They're not being replaced. What we understand, and again, this is something we probably need to check with the county, but our understanding is that they would not put another street tree there at all. They would move the tree onto the resident's property if they want one.
Okay, so you would like University City to start replacing them.
Yeah.
Okay, if we were to replace a tree that is on county land, whose tree does it become?
That's a good question. We don't know.
And who's responsible legally if that tree falls on somebody's car?
Yeah, I think those are the issues they're thorny issues that we'd probably need we need legal guidance from, because I'm sure they wouldn't mind giving us the trees, right? I bet they wouldn't. But when you get into the issue of now who owns the liability, et cetera, that's going to be the sticky wicket, I'm sure.
Well, also the other question would be too, if we were to then plant on that land still says county land, right? Okay.
Maybe
so
that may
these-
be a question for another day.
Another day. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I do think, though, that it would not hurt us to make outreach to the county to get a little bit more clarification. But I mean, living on Delmar, everything you are saying, I live with and I understand.
Yeah.
So, other questions? Councilmember Brenner.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you for the presentation. I love to have a lot of data and make my decisions. So I appreciate that we'll have some data that we can follow over the years. I appreciate that. Just a thought, because one of the things that you've mentioned is that you're not sure our forestry staff is sufficient and that we have old equipment. I know that City Manager Rose has been looking at ideas to share resources with other cities. And this may be one area to look at, particularly for equipment if we don't use it all the time. And that might help bolster our forestry capabilities. So just a thought. So, and I agree, our canopy is one of our assets as as a city. I think it's something that people, attracts people to the area to buy homes and things like that. So we need to be very aware of
Right.
keeping it
And
healthy.
yeah, I appreciate that comment. And
Mhm.
I do want to make it clear to everyone that we want to keep reporting on the numbers and let you know what's going on. How you address it is certainly your business. You know a lot more about running the city, and we make suggestions. Some of them you may look at and go, they don't really make sense because we just don't know enough, but we'll just throw our ideas out there. They may or may not stick, and we're not going to be concerned about what avenue you take to address it at all.
Councilmember Smotherson.
Thank you, Mayor Crowe. I do want to thank the commission and you for the presentation. And I've got a couple of questions and some things to actually comment on. What I wanted to know is if the commission do you guys know what the inventory looks like for planting trees? Because I was looking for a list of what's available. And the reason I ask that is because on the 1200 block of Purdue, there are 4 homes that trees were taken down years ago, but never replaced. And I've asked each neighbor, would they like to have a new tree planted? And they are saying yes, but they want to know what's available because there are certain trees like sycamores they don't want. I mean, there are certain things that they don't want. Certain trees that do. And one particular neighbor asked about I'm not sure if this is the full name, but this is a tree that actually has red or ruby red leaves, and it maintains those leaves throughout the summer. I think it's like a crimson century or something like that. I don't know the full name, but they would like that tree specifically because they like the look of that tree. So I would like and appreciate a list of what we have available in our inventory. And I will say that I have a linden in front of my house, and my mother has a linden, a small leaf linden in front of her house right next door. And she loves those trees. Absolutely. Because as you know, they grow evenly and there's a great looking tree. So anyway, but I wanted to also add to Councilmember Clay's comment about the complaints that we get. And one of the complaints is that the roots grow into the sewer system, and that's the other reason they want that tree gone. But one thing that I would appreciate what this commission could do is to get information in the doors of the Third Ward residents explaining the importance of trees, but also explaining that we can take down a tree, but we would also like to replace it with a new tree, because a lot of them are very accepting of the fact that they want that huge tree gone, but they will accept a smaller new tree. And that's something that they need to have in their hands and be able to read and understand the value and importance and what's available to them. Okay, if we could somehow get that out to them.
Sure.
The last thing that I want to talk about is, and I believe they're elm trees, and I think they run up and down Etzel. And this is an issue, again, my colleague and I get complaints about, but these elm trees have been there for years, and they are huge. And one of the problems that some of the residents have, and this is something that nobody predicted in the past, they planted the tree, and the tree grew over 40 or 50 years. And what's happened is that they have houses along Etzel where they have no driveway. So, and their only option of parking is either in the back alley, which is not safe, especially if you're women and child and a woman with kids or anybody. And that's not safe. So their only option is to park on Etzel under the trees. And they are having problems with the trees destroying their lawn. They are having problems with the trees limbs falling onto their cars. And again, we're talking about people with not a lot of, money. And
Right.
they are folks that are everyday people that are working every day, but not, so their insurance, they have a problem because again, they're reporting this to insurance, and that becomes a problem. So one of the things that I wish that we could consider, and this is just my opinion, is that some of those trees, when they asked, should come down, because that's a particular problem that wasn't foreseen in the past. And it is a real problem right now because those people don't have options and they have to park on Edsel and they have to park under those trees. And that's it. Thank you.
Uh-huh. I should let you know, sir, that one of the things that we do entertain is for residents to, once they've talked to the forester, if they still have concerns, they can come to our meeting and discuss it with us. So.
Yeah, and that's something that needs to be updated because they've done that, and the only thing they get back is that it's a healthy tree, and we won't take it down, and that's frustrating. So,
I haven't seen it. We've only had 2 people in the last year and a half, so maybe there are some things we need to look at there. I appreciate your comments, though.
And if I could ask a couple of questions, you mentioned Clayton. Are there any, with the other communities around us, are there any others that have as active a program as Clayton and U City? And I really just don't know that.
I haven't looked into it. I think I will, though.
I mean, just kind of curious as whether it's not necessarily contiguous to us. I'm just kind of curious because as the city manager has mentioned and as Councilmember Brenner has mentioned, the opportunity to utilize resources and expertise to be interesting to see who else has this engaged of a program. And the other question I would ask, and I know this is really not expecting, I'm not expecting the answer tonight because I do believe there's clearly a success ratio that is much higher when you have a professional plant a tree. But if we had any of the community organizations or the schools help out with programs like that, would that be unsuccessful or successful? If we're down, I think the number was 500 trees. I'm assuming that, that to you folks that it would make more sense to have professionals do this and not have it be a community group do it. That
Right.
am I in the ballpark on that one?
Yeah, there are very small trees called whips. They look like a stick. Kids could probably get involved in planting those in some places, but when you're getting a little bit bigger tree, one of the things that our commission has done is we've done some self-education, and now I can go around and look at trees and go, that one wasn't planted right. It was mulching too high. This one, this tree, it's got roots going like this because they didn't cut the ball when they put it in.
Yeah.
So there's some very technical things about planting a tree, more than I realized.
We learn something new every day. The last one, which is totally has probably not much of a purpose, and I'll go back to Councilmember Clay, is why were pin oaks so popular? If we've got that many of them, I'm just curious, was there something way back when that
similar with ash trees, Department of Conservation promoted planting ash trees. They're beautiful form. Doesn't get too big. It's a nice tree. So people planted a lot of them. But that goes back to the reason why we're removing all these ash trees. When you plant all one species, there's going to be a time where you're going to have to remove a lot of these trees. And so that's why we don't want to let people pick each individual tree. But I do want a list that says you cannot plant this tree in this type of site. Because availability for trees that you were asking about, everybody wants a red tree. And if we do that, we're doing a dishonor to the next generation. That's our job, is to plant trees for the next generation.
And by the way, for anyone who is watching or listening through, we recognize that the question was answered without being at the microphone, and the pin oaks were put up years ago because they were a giveaway. They were less expensive, and then the opportunity to put trees in is something that needs great forethought. Those comments can probably be shown in the minutes, but we recognize those of you listening at home probably could not hear that answer. But thank you for the answer, though. Still the same, Mr. Kaiser. Councilmember Clay.
Thank you, Mayor Crowe. Real quick, so what is the average height of newly planted trees in terms of how tall they will get? Do
How
we
tall
have
they
a
would
sense
Eventually, yeah.
of that? Well, because the existing trees we have are gigantic and bust through the sidewalk and were inappropriate ultimately for the tree lawn. So the new trees that we plant, what is their expected height?
Well, there's an interesting thing we learned about how to mitigate the damage to sidewalks. The University of Syracuse, is that right? Syracuse University? Cornell. They did some research. They came up with a compound that you can saturate into the ground, and it is easier for the tree roots to follow that. And you can get it to where it goes in the direction you want it to and not uproot the sidewalks.
No, okay.
You can even do that with existing trees sometimes. And think, is that right, Jacob?
Okay, we can't,
Yeah.
no more going back and forth. Either comes to the microphone or you answer it.
Okay, Jacob.
I get in trouble. I get in trouble when I let that happen. The
Okay.
lady down there gets very mad at me.
But you are asking us some technical questions
Right.
regarding forestry, and so I have to refer to him, but yeah, that's, so, yeah, that is you do, I think going forward, as you plant trees, you should keep that in mind. You're absolutely right, to avoid the situations you have now.
Well-
And fortunately, there are some technical ways that those can be mitigated now.
Well, let me ask this, and with the mayor's approval, I don't know, Forester Kaiser may need to answer this. It's more of a technical question.
I'm good with that.
City
manager is.
Yeah. So if asked by a resident, is it fair to say that the new trees that we are planting will be smaller and more compact than the ones that we had in the past? Is that a fair statement?
No, some
Okay.
trees will, some trees will not. Plant the
Okay.
right tree in the right place. Don't plant whatever. Our biggest problem with urban forestry is a monoculture where you have the same species of tree. I believe you're talking about, I know what block actually you're talking about. They're all pin oak trees. And as you saw on the inventory, 17% of our inventory is pin oaks. They are mature pin oaks. We are starting to lose them at a rapid rate. When I plant trees, when I choose trees to plant, I think of things like, are there power lines there? How wide is a tree lawn? I'm not going to plant the same tree on the 7,000 block of Kingsbury as I am 6,800 block of Corbett. There's different tree lawn sizes, so different trees fit in different places. And you're not going to see these results in our lifetime. It's for the next generation. There's plenty of research and other evidence of how to do this, but it takes a long time to see the results. It's an unfortunate thing where you don't see the results, but people like me in the industry see little results every day, so we enjoy it. But we really do it for the next generation. So no, we're not planting smaller trees everywhere. We love those big, beautiful trees. They create so much shade, help you save money on cooling on your home. They actually help the infrastructure, sidewalk, road to shade it. If it's properly maintained, that is the whole thing with this. I can preach about trees all day, but we have to properly maintain them. If you don't, they are a nuisance and they are a problem.
To all of you, is there a light on or no light? Okay. To all of you, thank you very much. Sincerely, an excellent report. We appreciate all you've done. If you've done this in a year and a half, really, thank you immensely. To my colleagues, we will start at 6:30. We've got a 7-minute break. Thank you very much.